Hey, y'all. Welcome to Book Marketing Mania. I'm Kim, a book marketing strategist for Christian authors, and I'm so thrilled you're here to learn how to grow your author platform, market your book on podcast, and steward your message in a way that honors God and your time. So I have heard you loud and clear. You'd rather spend your time writing than marketing your books. But I know we can agree that you have to get the word out to those you wrote your God-given message for, right? Your target readers are desperate for the help found within the pages of your book, and your words are the answers to their problems and the solutions to their most commonly asked questions about the struggles they're facing today. So I invited my friend Daylene Bickle to be my guest to talk about distractions that keep us from marketing our books and how to overcome them. Daylene is a book coach, host of the Ink and Impact podcast, and author of the one-year collection of weekly writing prompts. Now, you might be surprised by the marketing distractions Daylene talks about today. Fear, overwhelm, frustration, and how those can actually start with the places we choose to show up and the strategies we choose to use. Oh goodness, y'all, you're in for a treat today, so let's get to it. Hey, Daylene, welcome to the Book Marketing Mania podcast. I'm so glad you're here today to serve our listeners.
Oh, thank you for having me. I am excited to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to just jump right into it, Daylene. A lot of my listeners have been sharing with me that it just takes so much time to market their books. And, they've got this calling from God to write books and write messages that move people and impact people, which I know is your passion as well. And so I really wanted us to dig in today, some thoughts from you and some wisdom on how our audience can spend time marketing their books without it taking all their time, right? And a big piece of that is the things that distract us from what we're supposed to be doing and what God's calling us to do. So I want you just to kind of dig into that and anything you have to share.
Absolutely. I'm glad to do that. And I am going to start off with a little bit of tough love, though, because marketing distractions are really just avoidance tactics. I think that we avoid marketing for three primary reasons. That's fear, overwhelm, and frustration. Mm-hmm. I'm going to dig into all three of those in a little bit. But, a writer might not struggle with all three, or they might at different stages of the writing process. But I think that everyone listening can identify with at least one of those avoidance tactics. I think that that's what's stopping them from marketing effectively. And I want to pause there for a moment and talk about effectively versus successful marketing. Mm-hmm. Because I think success is all relative. One person's success might be another person's bottom of the barrel, right?
Yeah,
depending on how many books we've written, where we're at in the process, if we're new or not. So I think that we need to switch our mindset from thinking, I need to be a better marketer, I need to be a more successful marketer, and just think about how we can become an effective marketer. God doesn't call us to be successful at what we do. He calls us to be effective. And, I'm thinking about the Great Commission. He didn't tell us to go, save XYZ number of people. Now that's his job to save the people, right? But our job is to be the vessels to allow him to work through, or simply to go and share the gospel message. Yes. So in this mindset, it switches from thinking about all about me and what I need to do in order to reach my goals, and reverse that to how I can serve my readers and help them achieve their goals.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
And so when we make that mind shift and it's less about us, there's less stress, there's less pressure. It's like, we're helping people, right? By sharing about our books. I don't think that God gives us this message to share, which he has as Christian writers. He's given us a special message, a special story to share with people. I don't think he's given it to us to then just, sit on our computer and not go anywhere, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of people, though, they take that step, they do publish it, but then they don't do anything more with it, right? And I think that is where God wants us to really step out in faith and really share that message.
Yeah, I love that because I do believe in my heart, like marketing is just helping people, right? I mean, that's why God called us to write the books. and any kind of message he's given us. He just wants us to get out there and share it, because the intention is that we're helping people, right? It's not self-promotion about what we have to share. It's more about that message, and that he gave it to us to share and help people overcome whatever, they need to overcome through the words of the book. So I'm so glad you talked about that, because I think that's so important just to kind of keep that in mind, because I think we start spinning our wheels on so many different things when it comes to quote unquote marketing, right? Because we just get into that bubble versus what are some ways I can just get out there and help people? And I know writing is a big piece of that, right? Because typically, we get done with writing one thing, we're on to the next writing thing, and I think that's what's different with authors, right? Versus other entrepreneurs. Because a lot of times, other Christian entrepreneurs, they have one thing, right? They get the one thing ready, and then they just talk about it over and over and sell it over and over. And with writers, it's those words, right? And there's never you never end your words, right? There's just always new words to write about, or new books you're writing. And I love you talked about, like your book being on the computer, because a lot of things I've heard recently too from my listeners have been just like, I write this book, I do some marketing of it, and then I put it on the shelf, and, they realize it's not helping anybody if it just sits on that shelf, so we've got to get out there and keep sharing it with people and helping them. So anyway, I know you and I could just talk about that for hours and hours.
Yes. So just tying that in, book marketing is less about selling than it is about inviting, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone loves to be invited to, go places, but readers want to be invited to read your book. Mm-hmm. So go to where your readers hang out. Where are they? So there are 3 things that we're going to identify. And that's the first thing. We're going to identify where your readers hang out. Are they searching for books on Goodreads? Mm-hmm. Well, then do a book promotion there, and regularly share. I don't know if your listeners all know this, but you can share your author newsletter on Goodreads.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah. So, let people get to know you and like you and build that trust factor, and then join a book promotion. Goodreads is great for that. Do your readers participate in book bundle giveaways from places like BookBub and BookFunnel? That's a great way for you to, not just do a book promotion, but if you have a freebie, there are a lot of times that authors will do newsletter swaps on those sites. And so you can get introduced to new readers that way. And it's very hands-off. You're not knocking on doors, readers' doors. It's just going to their newsletter inbox, right? And you're being introduced to them. Do they listen to podcasts, right? Mm-hmm. That's an obvious one. And I know you speak a lot to that about how authors can get on podcasts and gain more visibility and reach more readers that way. So pitch yourself as a guest. Do your readers go to book expos and book conferences and things of that nature? See if you can become a participant in that and display your books, or at least attend and have some, bookmarks or business cards or whatever you have to hand out to people as you meet them, and reach readers that way. Of course, everybody knows that people still love libraries. Offer to host a book signing there, or do a local library book tour. I know several authors who have had great success in just offering to share about their book, give a presentation at different libraries in their Tri-County area. Obviously, if you enjoy social media and you're on social media, one of the ones really burning up books right now is TikTok, right? Mm-hmm. I personally am not on there, but I know a lot of authors are having success on there. And I don't even know that if you would have to have a lot of activity on your own account there, but if you get in and connect with some of the book reviewers on there, that would be a good way to get your book seen as well. And then one more that I'm going to share about where the readers hang out is Facebook is still a big avenue. So there are ads that you can buy, but that one comes with the caveat that you really need to have a large budget for marketing for that to be effective. Yes. So that one I say that would be the bottom of the list. Wait until you really have success built up in your other avenues of marketing, and have that, you don't want to go into debt to do your marketing.
I'm so glad you put that at the bottom, because I think a lot of people start there,
They do.
And if you have the budget, then you should start there. But if you don't, and you're really focused on the organic free strategies, then all the ones that you just listed. So go in and finding where your reader hangs out first, because before you can even start marketing to them, right, you got to figure out where you need to be at.
And that once you get to talk to readers and you become more comfortable, that will help your marketing in all the other avenues, those other type of marketing tactics. And I'm going to touch on that too, but it's all about confidence, really. And getting to know on the ground roots efforts, your readers, that will really help in the long run.
Yeah. So just hearing you say that, all that list, like those are some awesome places to market your book. But I'm immediately thinking of like what you talked about in the beginning, fear, overwhelm, frustration, because we'll be like, oh my gosh, one, I'm overwhelmed, right? I can't be in all these places. Or, once I do pick, like if I was going to try like a TikTok or something, I might be like, well, I don't want to do video.
Right.
And we just get ourselves frustrated. So I love that you kind of talked about those three things.
So the next thing that you want to identify is the root reason of why you aren't effectively marketing. And this is maybe going to be harder for some people than others because a lot of times we don't really want to self-analyze, right?
Yes.
We just want to ignore it and push it to the side. But that's what's really going to help you fight and overcome those distractions because we need to find out what's preventing you. So that goes back to identifying right now where you're at. Is it fear of marketing? Is it overwhelm? Like you're currently marketing and you're just like too much all at once. Or are you frustrated because you've been trying to market and you're not getting anywhere? You're just not where you want to be. So identify where you're at right there. And I'm going to talk about each of those in detail here in just a second. But the third thing that you want to identify is your preferred marketing channels. So this is where you want to play to your strengths. Okay. Start out strong with where you're comfortable. And then also choose one method after you get comfortable to then learn. Okay. So have that growth option there ready at the ready, but first play to your strengths. So if you enjoy social media, then market on social media. But if you don't enjoy social media, you don't have to. Okay. I think that's freeing for a lot of people. So many people feel that you have to have that XYZ number of followers and email subscribers. And while those are helpful and nice, they're not necessarily the only way to market. Right. So if you have a presence there, that's good. But, you don't have to make that your primary method. If you are instead a speaker, you're naturally gifted at speaking and you like being on the stage or you like talking on podcasts, make that your primary marketing effort. Otherwise, there are some people that are more introverted. A lot of writers are. And writing is really their passion and that's their strong suit. That's where God has truly gifted them. And they're most comfortable writing. So they're blogging, but you have to be careful not to just stay on your own blog, right? That's not necessarily going to reach a lot of people, especially when you're an aspiring author, right? This is where you need to pitch to other people's blogs. If you're writing, devotionals or Bible studies, pitch to a Christian magazine about one theme that you're going to be talking about in your book. Those are all great ways to play to your strengths. So, and again, play to your strength. Don't do all of those all at once. That's where it leads to overwhelm.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Pick one and stick with it. And I'm so glad you talked about, do you even enjoy being on social media? Because I think that's definitely a huge distraction these days. If you allow it to be, right? It doesn't have to be. But it's just how when you get on it's social, how do you feel about it all? And is it just a distraction of all this stuff going on? Or can you be intentional about it? And like you talked about, you could just have a presence there. And I think that's so important. Like if somebody if your readers are like on Instagram and they're going to go look for you on Instagram, you don't have to be posting tons of content on there, but you could have a presence there, have your bio super strategic, which if you haven't listened on both on my podcast and Daylene's, our amazing Instagram coach, Retha Gray, can talk all about that. But I think just, optimizing that. And then I know like you and I, Daylene, that's where we met is on Instagram and connected. And I was on Daylene's show. If y'all want to tune in, it's episode 21 on how to become a podcast guest. I love being on her show. And then, that's how we connected and have had this relationship. And I think that's so important to not social media just gets such a bad rap, especially nowadays. But I think we have to really dissect it and look at how we're using it, right? It may not be your, like you said, it may not be your primary method to market your book, but it might be a place you're going and engaging with people, and that's okay, but everybody teach their own. We have to figure out, is that the best place for us? So anyway, so I'm so glad you talked about that. And then just especially like if you're good about blogging and writing, which most of our audience definitely is because they're authors and writers,
then you may need to pitch other blogs and offer up, we used to do that so much more than we do now, guest post. I think we got away from that, but I think we're starting to see a shift back to it because content is so important. And we got to remember, we can go do that. We can be, and what blogger doesn't want, fresh content on their blog. So to have some guest posts do that, I love all that. Okay. Continue on. Sorry.
No, but you touched on something that's really important. Yeah. So one thing that you said that was really important is that you and I connected on social media. So, social media might not be where you're engaging and connecting with your readers, at least at first, but you can engage with other writers and other, book reviewers and make those connections that can help you down the road, to promote your book. So that's just another way to look at it as well.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So we've identified these things. Now we need to take action. So if fear is your biggest stumbling block right now, it's time to fight that fear. And the best way is what I touched on earlier, is to build confidence. And so begin to take one marketing effort. And, that first step is always so scary. But after you consistently practice it, it becomes easier. You become more comfortable. You start to get good feedback. And yes, you might get some negative feedback. We also have to build our thick skin here, right? And remember whose we are. We're the Lord's. We're sharing his message. We need to rely on him, not listen to man, right? But we just have to learn all of that. That's stuff that we have to go through the trenches of. And a lot of times we want to avoid it, but that's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to become better. So build our confidence and, stand confidently in who we are and create a quality book. If we aren't confident in our own book, like say we rush to press and we get it back and we're like, oh, there are a lot of errors, editorial errors that were missed. And we might be like, I'm not so comfortable putting it out there in the world, right? Or in my personal experience, I was going to cut costs and create my own cover. And then when I got it back, I saw all the things that were wrong with it. And I was like, I literally was so embarrassed by that cover that I did not promote it at all until several years later when I revised and updated the content and then hired a designer. And what a difference it made. I was confident to promote it. So, you have to take those things into consideration too. Make sure that we're creating a quality book that we are proud to display, right?
Yeah. You talk about that, the cover and the design, and I know it's gotten, I won't say easier, but it has gotten somewhat easier than it used to be, right? I mean, because there's so many more choices for that and people that we can work with on that. But I was also thinking about back to what you said earlier, just even being confident in that message that God's given us, like just really going, okay, he gave this to me. I've been through this struggle. I can help somebody else through this struggle. Like just being confident in that message that you're going to share. And again, it's not about self-promotion. It's not about quote unquote marketing. It's really just from the heart sharing and helping other people. And I think just, we need to be more confident in that too. It's like really buying into, you've been through this, God gave this to you. You've been through this. He's helped you through it. You've got to get out there and help other people and just be confident in that you have a really important message and a way to help people. So I love that you talked about building confidence for sure.
Yeah. So then if overwhelm is your thing, it's time to fend that off. Okay. Fend off overwhelm. This is common sense. I'm sure each of you listeners have heard this before, but create a schedule. Okay. It's hard to stick to schedules. I know things come up, but have that schedule there to prepare your mind for it. Right. And try to prioritize it. Do it first thing in the morning and get it out of the way if you need to, or make it, the Monday activity of your week, right? Just make sure that you make it a priority and you have it on a schedule. And another thing to help prevent overwhelm that I mentioned before is don't do everything all at once. Right?
That's what I was just about to ask you, Daleen. Because I know, again, we talked about just some initial ways you can market your book. There's so many ways to do it. And of course, as we're online, we hear about more and more and more. There's just constantly new ways to come that people are doing it, that they're getting their messages out there. And so what advice do you have? Just how do you kind of prioritize? And I know a lot of it is like, where are my readers? Like, it doesn't make sense to go be on TikTok if your readers aren't on there. But then again, you might get the reviewers talking about your book, but you have to kind of weigh each of these. So any advice you have for our listeners on how you can kind of prioritize those?
Yes. So, like you said, identify your readers, but also play to your strengths. If your strength right now and you're first starting out is, say, that you're pitching blogs. Okay, make that. Okay, Monday morning, I'm going to pitch 2 blogs today. And every week until, maybe for the first quarter, 3 months, you pitch 2 blogs a week. Or if you're on social media, don't get on 5 different social media platforms. Just pick one to focus on, maybe 2 to, really be active on, but just limit how much you are putting into your schedule. And then also limit how much you're listening to. Right. Like you said, we're always bombarded on social media, especially, you click on one thing and then all of a sudden the algorithm's showing you this and this and this and this tied into it. So just having it written in your schedule, what your focus is, what your goal is, then staying true to that, right? Okay, is this that I just heard going to benefit what my plan is for this quarter or for this week or this today? Are they, complementing each other, or are they distracting each other? So, and another thing I want to mention about overwhelm is, don't set a huge unrealistic goal. If you're starting out, don't expect to get on, I don't know, hundreds of podcasts this year, or, expect that your TikTok is going to go viral. Don't expect these things. Don't plan for those things. Yes, they may happen, but, just try to be mindful of the message that God has given you and trust that He is going to place that message and direct you to place that message in front of those readers that He has planned for you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think too, like asking some of your peers, that are, at a similar place in their author journey, what's worked best for them. Because I hear from so many people. I mean, I know like guesting on podcasts, a lot of people, they want to get on the biggest shows. They're just writing their first book, but they want to get on, the biggest Christian shows out there. But I think, you really have to like study and look at what who the guests are on the show, like that's a whole different topic. But I was just going to say, like, I would definitely ask people, like if they have been a guest on that show, or if they were trying to be a guest on that show too, just like ask them how that went. Because I know a lot of people will say they may have had an opportunity to reach a large audience, but it didn't have a big return on what their goal was for it. So I think it's really important for us just to ask our peers, or they may say the opposite. It may be like, oh, wow, I was a guest on this one show and it had a huge return. I connected with so many people and sold a lot of books and got a lot of people on my email list. So I think it's just really important to ask other people for their feedback on what's worked best for them and their marketing efforts. So that's just thinking about, again, just being overwhelmed. It sometimes helps to just get some other people speaking into it too.
It does. And it's important to know too, that you really don't want to grow too fast. I mean, we want, it sounds nice. And yes, we want to sell books, but if you grow really fast and become a, national bestseller, all of a sudden there are a lot of requirements expected of you that you might not have the structure already built for. And so that will lead to overwhelm and frustration as well. So, all along the way, I know you're a big proponent of this too. Start marketing even before you have finished your book and start getting those pieces in place so that if it does happen, like, a website, even just a landing page, that is so important. Everyone is either going to check social media and or what your website is. And if you don't have a website, or if it's, looks like it was from back in 1999, potential readers are going to potentially be turned away, so build those those building blocks, start putting on there. And you want those websites and landing pages so that you can share the social proof too. I have been on these podcasts, or I have been featured in these publications or blogs. And here, if you're wanting to speak, this is where you put your media kit, your speaking topics and all of that. So all of this takes time. And of course, having the email service provider in place and having those email automations set up. Again, I don't want to overwhelm people. I don't want you to get frustrated, like, oh my goodness, I have to do all this stuff. But you start small and you start at the beginning, and then you just gradually add one more thing and, learn and take steps.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I love that you said, the marketing starts way back when. And I know you have a great episode on your podcast, Aileen, about, I wrote it down. It's episode 6, and it's 3 benefits of sharing your content before your book is published. So I'm a huge believer in that. Like really from day one, that we're getting online and starting to talk and share anything we're marketing. Yeah. You may not have a book in hand, so you don't think you're marketing your book, but really that message is going to be going in your book one day. You're marketing way back then and having a place, for people to go connect with you further on your website or an email list. And, it's like you have all these things you can do, but some of them, there is kind of an order to them in the sense of, you don't want to be doing a whole lot of all these marketing efforts if you don't have a way to capture people, like on your email list, because what's the use? It's not going to go anywhere if you don't have a way to follow up with them and be able to tell more about your message in your book. So yeah, that's great. I'm so glad you brought that to our attention again.
So we're fighting fear, we're fending off overwhelm. And the third one is we're forgetting frustration. Okay. So if you've marketed your book in the past and not getting anywhere, or it's not yielding the results you anticipated, you might wanting to throw your hands up in the air and say, why bother? And become cynical.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And just sit on it. Right. But instead of doing that, or blaming another person or service provider for not holding up their end of the bargain, or even worse yet, wondering what's wrong with your readers because they're not buying this book, right? We don't want to go there, right? That's the wrong mindset. That's not going to help us at all. Instead, just consider it as a learning process. So, and analyze what is going wrong, what is not working. Do I want to tweak that and make it work? Or do I want to go into a different avenue altogether of marketing? If something isn't working and you really don't want to do that, don't. Try something else, right?
Yeah, and take time to do that. And it doesn't come easy, right? And sometimes you do have to kind of reach out to somebody else to kind of look into things with a different lens than what you would look at. But I know, like back on social media, the algorithm is a beast, right? And it gets a bad rap. We understand it from their business perspective, but we're like, oh, I'm spending all this time on social and posting all this stuff and it's not working. But you really have to kind of dig into what does work on that platform, and then you really have to kind of look at the numbers, and not from a, follower standpoint of numbers, but just, the reach that social is getting today, and you have to look at, okay, if only this many people are seeing this, and this many people took action, maybe you may be doing better than you thought, or you may be like, oh my gosh, that's not worth my time, So I do think we have to just stop and analyze that every once in a while. And it's not always fun, but it's so informative, and it'll really help you when you dig into, where you're going to spend your time and resources moving forward. So
yeah. And it's also important to really think through and be honest with yourself. Okay, this isn't working, but did I really put in as much work as I'm thinking that I did? If you're really trying to make social media your main marketing effort, are you posting once a week and then wondering why nothing's happening? Right. So it takes really honest evaluation. Like you said, that's where someone else's eyes can be very helpful in identifying that too. Whether, okay, this is really time. I have put in a lot of effort. It's been, however many, like 3 months, say, and no traction. Okay, let's try something else. Or, I really kind of dropped the ball on that. I had it in my head of what I wanted to do, but I really didn't do it. Yeah, I just think overall, wrapping it all up is just to stay focused. Marketing distractions, they don't just slow down our book sales. They can also prevent us from doing God's will. And as Christians, that should be a sobering thought, right? In 1 Kings chapter 20, there's a little tiny story chucked in 3 verses 40 through 43. And it says about a prisoner who got away while the guard was busy here and there. So don't let your book, God's message to your readers, be overlooked while you're busy doing other things. In addition to doing the marketing work, which we have to do, also pray, ask God to keep you focused on the work before you, to strengthen your confidence and overcome fear, and then learn from your frustrations, right?
Yeah, really turn it especially as Christian authors, right? As writers, we should be digging into God's word first and spending time with him first and let him show us what he wants us to do with this message. And I think it's such a much easier said than done, right? Because we know we want to steward the message well. And so we would think he just wants us to do everything to get his message out there, but that's not his intention. And I think we just have to keep kind of going back and to him and ask him, am I doing the right thing? Is this worthy of my time and stewarding this message? And just, and sometimes you just kind of push on until you feel like, whoops, wait, I'm doing something different that I should be doing, and reconvening with God, on that. But I know it's a struggle, but I think that we just have to keep bringing it back to him and getting the answers. And, he is the wise one. He's the one that's given it to us, and he's going to tell us exactly what we need to do with it for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, great. Well, Daleen, this has been amazing. And I love your heart for our audience and serving them. And I'd love for you just to share how everyone can connect with you. Because I know, well, first off, I want you to share about your membership. You have a brand new membership for authors and writers that I'm super excited about. So tell them about that first.
Yes, so it's called the Inkwell Collective, and it was birthed out of the Inkwell writing sessions that I've been hosting virtually for the past almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in April. And it's going to be growing because I just built this new community. It is for Christian writers. And it's not only an opportunity for us to gather together and actually write together, it has turned into a wonderful place to pray together, to grow together, to share resources, to interact, to connect. We writers, we write in isolation so much of the time. And we often don't know who to go to with our questions. Who can we trust? Who's really experienced in this or whatever. So this is just a great place for us to gather together, connect, ask our questions, grow our faith, and just glorify God through our writing. And it's not on social media.
Oh, good. I love that. Well, tell us where we can connect with you online to learn more about that and just connect and stay in touch with you.
Yes. So my primary social platform is Instagram right now. So you can find me there at Daleen Bickle. My website, incomeimpact.com. That's where I host all of my podcast episodes and the show notes from there. So those are the best ways to reach me.
Yay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again, Daleen. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. Thank you.
Wowzers, y'all. I know the struggle is real when it comes to marketing your books. Don't let fear, overwhelm, and frustration keep you from sharing the message God called you to write. If you need someone to talk through your book marketing ideas and prioritize them, or perhaps strategize the marketing section of your book proposal, I would love to help. Go to bookmarketingmania.com and schedule a power hour with me, and let's get you moving forward in marketing your book. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time. And as always, I'll be there for you to help you market your book one podcast at a time.